Hello, Kentucky. Matt Tackett here, and I'm excited to welcome you to this edition of the KAED Netcast. Now, every episode we have a special guest, and we certainly do today as we welcome Dr. Alison Davis of the University of Kentucky to the Netcast. Dr. Davis is a professor of agricultural economics at the university's College of Agriculture. She's a PhD-trained economist, and we're going to talk about what we're experiencing here in the Commonwealth. Dr. Davis directs the SETEC organization, which just does a fantastic job from Harlan to Hickman throughout this Commonwealth. And Dr. Davis is a very instrumental, crucial partner as we uplift the Kentucky Association for Economic Development Foundation Professional Education Certification Program. That and much more with Dr. Alison Davis on the KAED Netcast. Okay, so welcome back to the KAED Netcast. As always, we have a special guest, and we certainly do with this episode, Dr. Alison Davis of the University of Kentucky. One of my favorite people. I don't know if she'd say the same thing, but definitely one of my people. And there are a lot of really important weeds to get in here today, and we're looking forward to a conversation. We're also going to put you on the hot seat, so don't be too terrified. We'll want to get you better, but before we do all that, hey, Dr. Davis, thank you for your time today, and how goes it at the university and at our friends at SETEC?
Well, hi, Matt. It's going really well. I've got all of my friends from SETEC behind me. It's going great from my spare bedroom and my little laptop, but thanks for having me on Netcast. I'm excited I was finally invited.
Yeah. Do you like the title, Netcast?
I do. I don't know what the heck it means, but it's different than a Zoom bomb. So yeah.
I figured you'd say no there. I've got some really bad titles that I played with that I'll
It's true. I do agree with that statement.
Okay, so before we get in, hey, we've got most of our KAED family, all of them know you, but there are some folks from outside of our association that are watching this that may be kind of having this interaction with you for the first time. So how about you share a little bit about you and how you got involved in the economic development space?
Sure. Well, I did my PhD in economics a long time ago, it seems like, at North Carolina State University, and took my first faculty position at University of Nevada, Reno. My area of expertise is regional economics. And I did a lot of my early research on housing location, traffic congestion, and travel behavior. And when I went to University of Nevada, Reno, I took a position that was all around economic development in Nevada and worked with our university EDA center there and spent a couple of years there before being recruited to the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, which is where I've been for the last 14 years, and have worked both in research and in outreach and economic development all across the state. Most of my work is more focused in rural, micropolitan, and that's just because that's where resources are a little bit slimmer there. So, but happy to work anywhere in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I didn't know that you had spent time in Reno, so that's...
I did, yes, 2 years in Reno. It's apparently it's supposed to take you 3 years to get used to out west and the different climate, and I couldn't make it. So I left at 2 years. But I did love it there, but it was just not, the climate was not for me.
Yeah, you're in the right state now. I didn't know that. I bet most of our group probably didn't either. So now, where are you from originally?
I am from Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we've learned something here today, and I know all of our will. But you mentioned you're a PhD trained economist.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're filming this in early June on hopefully what is the tail end of the COVID situation, and we've been mitigating, and we'll talk about that, and hopefully we're on the emergent side of 2020. So can you talk a little bit about the economic ramifications and maybe some projections for where we're going?
Yeah, sure. I'm glad you dated this so that we can go back and see how wrong I am. But one thing about Kentucky is that typically we don't experience the booms or the busts like other states, for good or for bad, right? For the busts, it's good that we don't go as far down as others. but we also lag behind. And so we won't see the full ramifications. We'll see it happening in some of our other bigger places, and it'll trickle down to Kentucky, but not to the same extent. This is a different type of situation where it hit the service industry, which typically the service industry is sort of, it's the next layer down of what's hit, and we'll see manufacturing hit first. So it's a different type of recession. It hits a different type of folks faster. And so it hitting small businesses, hitting those kind of lower wage earners is pretty devastating to that particular sector and that particular class of household. It seemed like, we did some preliminary analysis of how this was hitting manufacturing. We did that with the survey we did through our BRE training. And manufacturing seems like it's been hit, but it hasn't been hit to the extent that it could have been hit. I think they'll reemerge, and they have reemerged relatively quickly. It's the supply chain disruptions that we need to figure out, and that seems to, as the rest of the world starts to open up and COVID goes down south through Mexico and South America, I think those will come back and we'll be okay. But I am worried about some of our small businesses that will not be able to come back. And I'm worried about those employees that relied on that as their mainstay.
Yeah, and I think we owe you just a massive thank you, and we'll talk on this in a bit. But we approach economic development in a myriad of ways at KAED, but in particular in response to COVID, we've wanted to make sure that there's ownership of process and a qualified strategy of business retention and expansion in every pocket of this Commonwealth, so that we can best mitigate and best position ourselves to handle the challenges specific to 2020.
Yeah,
been such a major part of that. So everything, all the challenges that you just mentioned, we're working in concert to do what we can there. And you had mentioned manufacturing, and I think there's a big focus on manufacturing of KAED and a lot of our members. You mentioned how they are doing in response to this. You're an agricultural economics professor as well, and we know what agriculture means to the state of Kentucky. It's our number 2 thing behind manufacturing. So, and we just released today an interview with Dr. Ryan Quarles, and he went into this. But talk about the effect of agriculture, of that industry, and how well positioned we are to ride this out and continue our momentum.
Right. And I think Kentucky is a great place for agriculture. And we have, up until recently, defined ag as just on-farm production. And when you do that, it doesn't seem to be quite the driver that we know it is. But when you start adding in ag processing, when you start looking at ag inputs, when you start looking at ag technology, when you start thinking about having all tech in Kentucky and some of the really great innovations that have emerged from that. And of course, I have to talk about the College of Ag. That's a really big player in Kentucky. And we have been closely following the impacts of COVID on ag. Certainly we've seen in our more rural places, those poultry processing plants, meat packing plants that have been sort of traumatized when there's been an incident. And we've seen soaring prices of food. But what's been really neat in Kentucky, and I'm sure other places, but we've noticed in Kentucky is sort of this reliance on our local food sector and our restaurants and our farmers markets. That's where we can get our products from really quickly. And so that's been really neat to see how quickly that has been, how quickly we've been able to get that market kind of bolstered. But it's extremely important. And you think about bourbon, and you think about the equine industry. Has been hit through Keeneland and through Churchill Downs. Hopefully, will reemerge with when we have the Kentucky Derby later in the fall. But I think those are kind of short-term implications. But I think there are plans to get moving forward. But just thinking about labor issues associated with getting folks to be able to work, H-2A workers to be able to work here during the summer has been just, another huge issue that we've got to be able to overcome.
Yeah, we spoke a lot with Dr. Quarles, who's the commissioner of the Department of Agriculture in Kentucky, about kind of our emergence and our positioning and opportunity to be the ag tech epicenter of North America. And I believe that, and I know that we're going there, and there's a ton of opportunities in everything that we do around that space. But you mentioned Alltech, every year the One Conference, just what's happening there and the innovation, it's so unbelievable. And then what's out of your college is really incredible. So we're positioned, and we have that opportunity to succeed in that space because Dr. Quarles, because of people like you, and certainly the college at the university. So we just really want to thank you for that.
It was interesting. I was just talking to someone who was doing a demonstration around economic development, and that was what they showcased. They said, well, let's look at Kentucky and their ag tech because that's an emerging sector. And I thought that was really interesting because this person was not from Kentucky. They don't know Kentucky super well, but that was the first cluster that they thought they should showcase. And it was really interesting to see the types of industries that could be in Kentucky and the types of small businesses and entrepreneurial innovations that might emerge.
Yeah, it's super exciting. There have been announcements. There will be more, and I know that the innovation is just going to continue accelerating.
Yeah,
right here in Kentucky. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about an organization that you lead in the college, SETEC. So a lot of our people are familiar with SETEC, but they may not be familiar with just the myriad and the amount of really important services that you can provide, and that you do provide all across the Commonwealth. So can you talk a little bit about that and introduce us to SETEC?
Yeah, I'm just really excited that you're pronouncing it correctly. So thank you.
I learned the hard way too, so maybe
it's only been like 3 years, so thank you. We are lovingly known as SETEC or SETEC. I just let it slide. It doesn't bother me at all. But we're housed in the College of Ag. We are a research and an outreach center. I have 14 staff, none of which has the same background. And so that makes it really fun because we can tackle with our communities and with our community leaders lots of interesting and difficult issues. My area obviously is economic development. And so we have some programs that fall under that umbrella, including our business retention expansion program. We do a first impressions program, which is really what it sounds like, sending secret shoppers to a community. We do the community assessment with you all, which we can talk a little bit more about, but really kind of saying what's our current capacity for doing economic development in our community. It's a data-driven process and works with the local community leaders to see what capacity is. We have a couple landscape architects, so we have community design. We'll work with public spaces, we'll work with downtowns, which is particularly important during COVID, about how do you create a place where people can feel safe and still be able to spend money locally. We do leadership development, and so we'll do all kinds of board trainings, leadership development trainings, things along those lines. We are, and I know we'll talk about this maybe a little bit later, but we do wage benefit surveys. We'll do a lot of data-driven products. We have access, we've invested a lot in data that we feel comfortable with. And so we'll do a fair amount of kind of customized projects to support wage benefit surveys, to support economic impact analyses, feasibility studies, strategic planning, anything along those lines, cluster analyses, leakage analyses, supply chain studies. So all that we can do a lot because we're at the house at the University of Kentucky, so we have access to some really great resources in addition to what we've invested in.
Yeah, I love the First Impressions program. There's two really good friends of mine that they use a simple message a lot, but I think it carries so well and it's so important. One, everyone in your community is an economic developer. You can affect change. And the other message of that, a friend of mine, Ryan Drain in Western Kentucky, says, look, be positive. You never know who is in your community. You never know who is exploring business development. You never know who Alison Davis is sent in. So just the First Impressions program, I think we can really learn a lot from that. And we'll talk about that in one of my next questions. But before we move to, I want to dive into the community assessment program. Talk about the grant project that you've recently done in response to the COVID situation.
Oh, sure. The business stimulus grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're very fortunate to have amazing partners in the community foundation world, which allowed us to quickly mobilize when COVID hit and when the SBA was releasing their PPP and EIDL programs. We knew businesses were going to hurt, and they were going to hurt fast. And so we were able to pull together some resources to create a business stimulus fund that we launched in 27 counties, including Southeast Kentucky, the river counties of Western Kentucky, Muhlenberg County, that would just get them some easy, fast money that was designed for nothing more than to be able to allow them to keep their doors open or to be able to reopen when this was all over. And so at the end of the day, I think we ended up allocating about 180 different to 180 awards that range between $1,000 to $3,000. We just launched in Moorhead and in Cynthiana what we're calling the Business Innovation Fund, which was now we're reopened. How do you create a customer experience that equals or exceeds what was before, knowing that you have to meet certain restrictions? And so helping and providing some technical assistance from some private folks around design, whether it's we want to have a walk-up window, whether we need to be able to use the back alley, whether we need to get ourselves online. We didn't have the capacity to do that before. And then provide some funding to those downtown organizations to ensure that not everyone now has a drive-through window, because that sort of takes away from the aesthetic of a downtown, but aligning kind of downtown planning with those businesses. So it's just been really great. We've been able to get around $750,000 that will go out the door to support those businesses that for many just gave them some time until they were able to access PPP, but even about 50 to 60% of them were not going to be eligible and were not willing to take on debt in a time of uncertainty of knowing when they'd be able to get back online.
Yeah, I got us off course there. That wasn't on the questions we had sent back and forth, but just I really wanted to bring that out because that's such an inspirational program, a model program, and I wanted the Commonwealth to know what you've done there and what an important resource that has been in a really challenging time. And I know personally some businesses that have received those grants, and I know what that has meant. So I just thank you for that. And there's information on the SETEC website. Mm-hmm. So back on course, the community assessment program, that's a partnership between you and me at KAED. We shared a little bit about what that is and why that is so helpful for communities.
Right. So the community assessment program is 3 different components. One is a really good data dig around like what is currently going on in your community and your region, both in terms of looking at employment and things like that, but what are some of the other community factors that would impact future economic development opportunities. The second is doing an interview with some of the local leaders in the community to assess capacity for understanding economic development strategies, looking at resources that are available, and sort of giving a baseline of here's what we think you could benefit from in the future. And then the final piece is doing kind of a first impressions on behalf of a business leader or another economic development professional who's not familiar with your community, who's going to go in both virtually, because we know a lot of these decisions are made before someone even steps foot in a community, to see what does your community look like to an outside economic development professional or a potential entrepreneur who's really in a high growth potential. And so to give a first impressions of what that community is, so it's not just going to be, what does your site look like, but will I be able to, if I bring my family, do I have access to good healthcare, education? Is there a housing stock that would meet the needs of future employment? And also, certainly that's another big question is there an adequate workforce to meet the needs of whatever business I anticipate expanding or starting or what have you. So it's a three-pronged approach. Back in the day, KAED did have a community assessment program. It was really comprehensive. The notebook that the report was in was really quite extensive. This is designed to just be, kind of a nice, concise report that has some clear strategies for moving forward. It could be, investment in other resources. It could be types of educational opportunities that an ED or community leader might participate in to enhance their capacity, or other initiatives that other community partners could lead to support those efforts.
Yeah, we're really proud. We're really proud of that program, and you're right. It's a concise yet holistic analysis of your community, and we know how important that is. I think when we release this, I'll tag some information on that program that we put out previously, along with this, so that you can follow up, and another partnership that we have. And I know you probably that I make you uncomfortable sometimes, because I'm pretty quick to hit the send button or the post on information on things that we're discussing. But I think we can say we're doing a wage and benefit survey this year, and it's at KAED. And that's been one of the things that I've been asked for one of the most, since my short amount of time here. So we will be lifting up that program this year, led by Dr. Davis at SETEC. So can you talk about what our members can expect when they get a phone call or an email from you?
Sure. Wage benefit study has been, it's used a lot, both within the economic development world. IEDC leads one annually, or not annually, but every few years. We do them a lot for manufacturers, and in essence, it's to ensure that we're all sort of providing competitive wages, competitive benefits, so that we can maintain a really good workforce. With the wage benefit study for KAED, it's always important to know, what is an appropriate wage that we should be paying? What are competitive benefits that we should be offering, as well as what are some of the professional development opportunities that everyone should have access to, and the other resources that someone in this field would need to be able to do a good job. This is particularly important as we go into a recession for our communities. Our counties have lost a significant tax base. It's not going to be pretty for a little while. But investment in economic development, I would say, is probably the most critical investment in these local places. So ensuring that there is a correlation between places that do invest in economic development, and when I mean putting actual dollars into programming, and those that don't. And so I think here it's a way for our local economic development professionals to make a case for investment when they can show that across the state, this is what this looks like. And of course, no names or places are ever used. We will, organize by size of place, but it is, you can't make a case if you don't have the data. And I think this is an easy and excellent way to do that.
Yeah, I'm so proud of this. I can't wait to get it rolling. I can't wait to see what the final product is. I'm excited that when people are gonna call me, that I don't have to alert them to other resources or tell them to do some digging on GuideStar. And I think this is, and you're right, I think it's so important, particularly at any time, particularly now, as we're all kind of facing challenges. And this is a bad analogy, but in many ways we're in a war, and you're not going to pull your soldiers from the battlefield lots of times. So I think this will be such an important.
I agree.
Yeah, this is going to be a really important tool for us. I can't wait for our members to have access to your good work there. I'm asking a lot of our guests on this what their definition of economic development is. And I'm particularly excited for you to kind of explain that, because you've got a really good holistic approach about this. You never let me forget that I don't need to be talking about attraction all the time.
Thank you. Yes.
Can you share what your definition is? We'll catalog it and put it out at some time.
Yeah, economic development to me is opportunity for individuals to experience a growth in wealth, a growth in income, which means that it's a strategy to increase quality jobs and markets and places. And, you know, when I teach economic development to my Martin School students, my Ag Econ students, you know, we teach it as it's a three-pronged approach, that it's based on targeted industrial attraction, that we're not just shooting anything that flies, that based on our competitive advantage, this is what we should try to attract. It's based on ensuring that our existing businesses receive the attention that they deserve for being such an important part of our community. So the business retention expansion piece. And then certainly thinking about entrepreneurship. And we've been really pushing lately around innovation-driven entrepreneurship, that we want to be a place that creates and attracts talent that's innovative, that thinks about the next cool thing that can be made. It doesn't have to be high tech, but it's answering really tricky problems with a great product. So those are my three strategies that we rely on, that are all on top of a foundation of a tremendous community that provides amenities that are essential for attracting, retaining industry and people. And so that's having housing, that's having healthcare, that's having education, that's having recreational amenities, having additional employment opportunities for spouses. So ours is very comprehensive, and places that have relied on those three strategies, but at the same time have invested in place, are those that have succeeded. And so we will, very rarely will we go in a place and work with a group that does not invest in community development at the same time, because I just don't think it's possible. I don't think you can have sustainable development if you don't focus on your place.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that up too, just about your definition of community development. And I know we've got that throughout this netcast. But I think a funny story here is probably a couple of years ago, we were working on, as kind of a research collaborative of organizations with a focus on community development. Yeah. And we went around the table and we were all talking about, well, what does community development mean for your organization? And it was pretty fascinating about just the different definitions. Now, I think I was one of the smarter people in the room, and I can never say that because I said, let me call Alison Davis.
Yeah, you are the smartest one.
So, but I've always, we agree wholeheartedly with everything that you've said around that. And, I appreciate you helping me along with my community development work and understanding too. So, I think one thing that maybe a lot of people don't know, Kentucky's SBDC is housed within the College of Agriculture.
Yeah.
They've done a really incredible job kind of assisting and leading Kentucky through some challenges of 2020. So we talk a little bit about the intentionality of the SBDC being placed in the College of Ag, and just the great work and what an important resource that they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, a couple of years, the KSBDC used to be housed in the College of Business and Economics. And maybe about 6 years ago, there was some assessment of where should it be housed. And to me, the College of Ag was a natural fit because, we are sort of the outreach college. We're the land grant mission of research, education, and service. And so it fit really closely with the idea of cooperative extension, that we're here to serve. And we're here to work in our local communities. We're statewide. Typically, there's no charge for what SBDC does. And to me, it was like we were working with families, farms, communities, and we were missing that individual business piece. And here's the KSBDC, who has this tremendous network, both within Kentucky, but also nationwide. And so it was a perfect fit. It just kind of closed up that ecosystem of a community. And they have been tremendous through this COVID response. I mean, they just jumped on it. The Kentucky team's been great. The national team, I mean, they've been just pumping out resources left and right, and really trying to stay on top of was a bit of a boondoggle with all the SBA stuff. I mean, and they get their funding from SBA, but they were really quick to try to ensure that everyone had information that they needed. They've been working with Cooperative Extension to help our agents also be a front door for businesses if they need support. I was really super impressed with what they were able to accomplish. And I think this crisis has elevated the position of KSBDC as one that's crucial. And I think, we always kind of laugh, oh, we're the best kept secret. And I think they were the best kept secret for a little while. And I think this has really said, we're here, we're free, and we're here, we've got great information, we've got great tools. So I'm super proud that they're a part of the college.
Yeah.
And
what they've been putting out has been so helpful. And I think you're right. I think there's some unfortunate positivity here. Unfortunate that this situation has drove such an incredible response that they have had. But you're right. I think it's elevated. And I'm proud of that too, because that organization is important to us. But the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development is routinely sharing and pushing out everything that they're producing, their webinars and their content. So our gang has always been very familiar, but I think now a much larger audience, hopefully, what we know is too. So I appreciate you talking about that, because that is a wonderful organization. I know you're very closely integrated with.
Yeah. I think, we had some folks from KSBDC who sat in on the BRE training, and they brought some great ideas of what they've been doing, doing virtual CEO roundtables during this, just to, even though they didn't know they were calling, it was officially a BRE program. I mean, that's what they were doing, is that they wanted to make sure those small businesses, and a small business through SBDC is anything under 500 employees. So that hits a lot of our businesses. So I was really excited to see them, thinking about additional ways for them to reach out and to partner with folks. So yeah, we are, I know the college is super pleased. We're super pleased that they've been a part of this.
Yeah, proud to call them colleagues. When we first started here, I said, you're one of my favorite people, but I'm probably not one of your favorite people, because you are so closely integrated and involved in everything that we do. You are putting in a lot of hours at KAED, and we appreciate that. So let's go back in the time machine.
Okay.
When did you get involved with KAED, and can you talk about how that relationship has kind of evolved to where it is today?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. I was involved through Stephen Taylor, who's always been a big cheerleader for KAED and been a part of the education group. We did some work, did some surveys with KAED membership years back with Hal. And it was kind of, would be a part of some conferences. But I think when you came on board, and I think I met you, and within like 2 minutes, you're like, all right, let's do it. And I was like, oh, wow. And my staff always says that I work too fast. And I was like, okay. So I knew we were going to get along well, because you're just going to just go. And so I appreciate that very much about you. But I think our relationship certainly has gone to the next level since you came on board. It feels like, I don't know, how many years have you been here?
Since late 17.
Holy cow. It feels like you've been here for like 10 years.
Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it though. But let's dive in on me a little bit more.
Your hair is turning a little grayer, isn't it? Yeah.
I've put on weight, but I'm having a lot of fun. And I think, we've talked about education since I came here. That was part of my interview, series of interviews, talking about how we would uplift this education program. And I'd done some similar work in a different association before this. But we kicked it around a lot. There was a lot of energy and a lot of spirit and a lot of really sophisticated conversations that we were having. But, and I say this with our group, we went over the edge to the point of execution when you got involved there. And we can lead into the next series of conversations on this. But KAED has launched a professional education certification program, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without Dr. Alison Davis and the team at SETEC. So I guess rather than kind of piecemealing this out, can we talk about kind of holistically what we're doing relative to professional education so that we can all uplift our touch points, we can enhance that professional capacity ultimately to accelerate economic development?
Yeah, I mean, I think each time we talk about this, it gets more and more exciting. The reason that you wanted to do the certification was so that what we were doing was based on reality in Kentucky. And while there are tremendous partners nationally that provide some great trainings, it's always better, it's more comfortable, we're more confident when we can learn from folks who are in our state, who have done great work and who can talk about, be very frank and honest about what worked and what didn't work. And so, that was one thing when we started with this certification and said, okay, we want to ensure that we were still following the IEDC guidelines for some of the modules. So we're sticking with some of the traditional modules, but what are some things that our Kentucky economic development professionals really need? And so we asked them. And so we've got these 6 modules that they have to take and are going to be really useful, whether it's BRE or marketing or what have you. But then there are other things like grant writing, like rural economic development, or right now we met recently to talk about supply chain disruption. So we said, okay, this is obviously a really big problem, particularly in the wake of COVID. What can we do about that? So that just shows that we want to be nimble, and we want to provide Kentucky education, and try to do it in a way that is easy for our economic development professionals to access, that's affordable, and that can be just more real than having to travel across the country, spend thousands of dollars just in travel before you start spending even more money, and not really have that Kentucky context.
Yeah, so proud, and I think it's this will create a legacy of programming at KAED that'll last long after I'm gone, and that's one of the things I'll always be so proud of, and it's specific to the professional education program. That's an 80-hour course or an 80-hour program that you can move through efficiently in 2 years, and incredibly affordable cost.
Mm-hmm.
Is $100, and we're really proud of that. And you helped us build a program that would be so affordable and also so impactful. So you'll see an announcement on what the 2020 version of this looks like very soon. And at the foundation of that is the KAED, the Institute for Economic Development. And I think we're probably safe to say that we're launching this virtually in late August. So do you want to share just a sec on KAED and what that'll look like?
So KAED, we in partnership with the Gatton College and with Murray State, it's a great group of folks who have stepped up and said, we can do this online. Certainly it was just too risky to say we're all going to get together still in summertime. And so we tried to create an alternative that actually may work better even without COVID, in terms of getting great information, educating our newer economic development professionals, but also involving our more experienced who will need to get this refresher in order to participate in the certification. And so it allows for some mentoring, which is awesome. I know that's something that the membership had talked about. It allows for not so much information overload because it's, crammed so much into 4 days, which is great. That's what we expect. But this time it allows us to do a little bit of, it's a little bit more convenient, do a little bit of learning on our own and then come together and do some more learning. There's a project involved that directly benefits the ED person in their community. So it still covers the same material. We'll still have, the experts both from within the state and outside the state come in and do their spiel. But I think it's just going to be, again, it's just going to be easier and maybe even a little bit more impactful than when we met as just, in that 1 week.
Yeah, and so and we know this. We've researched what other states are doing. There's a lot of movement towards virtual or postponements, and I can say with full confidence, at least from what I'm aware, that's happening across the country, we've got the best practice model here, and we just and it came from the vision of Dr. Davis. So we thank you for that. There's a series, these begin in August, it will end in December. We've probably got 13 or 14 different learning experience webinars we'll be putting out very soon. And we're bringing people together. It's important at a couple of different times. So it's important to us that we kind of create that family connected atmosphere of classes each year. So, and ultimately this will culminate in a graduation in December. So we're really excited so we're recording early June. We haven't put the information out, but maybe by the time this airs in a week or two, we will. So very excited. It's the most important thing that we do right now because there's such important content within these programmings, like the BR&E webinars that we've just recently rolled out. So we've done 3 business retention and expansion virtual summits led by the team at SETEC. So can you talk, and I think we talked about why that is important, an important strategy on this webinar, and then certainly on all the ones that we've launched, but can we talk about just the experience and maybe some major takeaways from those 6 hours of content?
Yeah, I thought it was, we did all virtually, which, I wish we had an opportunity to have a little bit of FaceTime. I think virtual is great, but it still would be nice to have some more closer knit conversations. But I think what the module did was it just kind of reinforced to our professionals that this is priority number 1 right now, that there's not a lot of attraction going on. People are, a little risk averse about starting their own ventures, although that should start emerging. This is also an opportunity for some innovation, but we need to ensure that those that we have right now are still able to operate, this time next year. And so what we try to do is just share both some current, and we wouldn't do this, the same way next year, because hopefully we won't be in another pandemic, but try to share what are some of the current practices that are going on in our state and other places in terms of BRE. And there were some national efforts and some data that had been collected, I think was useful for putting people at peace that we're not alone here. And in some instances, we're actually doing a little bit better, but just to give some trends of what's going on. And then we went through the process of doing a BRE. And again, it doesn't all fall on one individual to ensure that businesses are successful in their community. That it's a group of folks, maybe led by economic development professionals, maybe just participating with economic development professionals. There's a group of people that ensures that the resources, the technical assistance, the infrastructure is in place for our businesses to succeed and grow. And there are lots of different ways to do it. We propose one way, which is how we do it through SETEC, but there are other ways. Kim Houston did her top 10. I wish she could have been a part of the conversation last week, but she was at a hotel opening. She does her top 10 of how she does BRE, but I think what's important is that it should be a formalized structure. It doesn't have to be the same structure, but it should be formalized, that we should say every year, what are the efforts that we made? Who did we reach out to? Who did we not reach out to? What did we learn? And how can we use our partners to address those concerns?
Yeah, and I've been really inspired by some of the ramifications after these sessions. I love speaking to communities, and they're talking with energy and enthusiasm. Here's what we're doing because we were part of those BR&E summits. There's a lot of good content that's kind of coming out on social media that I love to share. So I know we've had such an important impact, and we'll keep pushing the gas pedal on BR.
Yes, we do have a lot of good ideas going that I'm sure if I just said to you one more time, you just say, okay, let's do it. But we're exploring other ways to get the information out and to help folks make it just a little bit easier.
Yeah, critically important to us at KAED, and you'll see more information. And back to those BR&E summits. look, there's a fee structure associated with the content in the certification program. While it is only $100, there is a cost associated. Now, with the BR&E courses, because of the situation that we were in and because of the really incredible partners that we're blessed with here, we made those free offerings. And not only that, we made them free to the entire state of Kentucky, not just KAED. So, we couldn't have done that without you and without the leadership foundation. So that was really important to us, and we thank you for that, because that, we see the impact that's having. So I just wanted to mention that. And with that, I think we will stop with the softball questions here. It's time for the hot seat.
All right.
And you're now on it here. And these are getting some people in trouble. So these are toughies. So first, favorite bourbon.
I hate bourbon.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I am for anyone who wants to send me wine. Oh, I am almost personally responsible for good or for bad for the new bill that allows shipment of wine.
Okay.
They were calling it the Alison bill. So I'm a Pinot Grigio Chardonnay drinker. So if anyone wants to send me some, I'm good.
Okay. Well, we won't hold that against you, knowing you're not a born and bred Kentuckian. You're a transplant. So we'll send you some bourbon.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
And you're right. On that bill. Let's go back to something serious. Legislation like that is important to us. There's been a lot of olive oil shipped from Kentucky probably in the past, but through legislation led by KDA and others, now there's, through reciprocal agreements, we can ship bourbon out of Kentucky that we needed to have.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
You're welcome.
Thanks for your impact. This entire state, you've been in a lot of communities, so we're curious to know, where's the best hamburger in Kentucky?
Hands down, the Wrigley Tap Room in Corbin.
Oh yeah. No, I know that place. Shout out Bruce Carpenter. There's a lot of good food in Corbin. Somebody, if you're looking for something to do this weekend, go check out Corbin and the food, assuming that the restaurants are all open and available.
They are all open. I was down there last weekend and had I had this honey jalapeno chicken sandwich with their Brussels sprouts at Wrigley. It was awesome.
That's a good restaurant. The answer is ultimately wrong, because we all know it's Billy Ray's in Prestonsburg, where I'm from, my hometown.
Okay. All right.
No, Wrigley Tap Room is very good.
Yeah.
There's good burgers everywhere. Favorite TV show?
Friends.
Friends? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't help it. Big Bang Theory, Friends. I can watch them nonstop. They're always looped. Yeah.
Okay.
Or Monk is also a good one.
About Monk on the USA Network.
Yeah, or Psych. Yeah, I'm a total dweeb. I can't help it. Those are just love, like detective shows.
I never watched Monk. I remember my dad did. He loved it. Okay. Yeah. Are you tired of seeing me on Zoom yet?
I'm tired of that background. Like, let's go ahead. I'm just going to come over and just rearrange the things on the shelf behind you and just like make it different. But I could never get tired of you, Matt. You've made COVID enjoyable.
Well, there we go. Okay. Last one. Favorite hobby when not doing SETEC related things?
I have two. And one would be, I'm surprised given my weight gain, but I am an avid cycle bar Peloton girl, despite the holiday commercial, and a tennis player. So tennis is my one hobby. I have an injured wrist right now, so I'm taking a couple weeks off, but I'm a pretty decent tennis player.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. Didn't know you played tennis. Okay. Well, we made it. You're off the hot seat. We did it together. So good job. Hey, this has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate your time here. I know how busy you are, so I mean that. I appreciate the hour you gave us here today. And before we part, do you have any final thoughts?
No, Matt, you've done a kick-ass job. I'm sure you're going to have to bleep that out, but you've done a great job. It's been a pleasure to work with you guys, and so I look forward to the future.
We're moving, and we're moving successfully because because of you in a lot of ways. So we appreciate that, and we just thank you for your time today.
Oh yeah, the green light. Yeah, I'm looking for something. I'm looking for something a little bit more flattering.
Yeah, I missed the green lights. Hopefully, at our annual meeting, I'm going to double down on the lighting that I normally.
That'll be great. I'll try to be as pale as possible so I can really just amp it up.
This has been fun. We appreciate it.